Hi, welcome back. The second video in the travel series that I'm doing, and this one's going to be on Norway. I've been to Norway a few times, so I've got a pretty good feel of the place. I've connected with a lot of colleagues and friends over there, so I have a pretty good idea of the background and the stuff maybe tourists are not seeing. The first video I did was on Dubai. That's gone down really well, so thank you for watching. I'll keep doing these all the time people are watching them. The first thing I would say about Norway is it is mind-blowingly beautiful. But as beautiful as it is also mind-blowingly expensive for certain things. And that's mainly what I'm going to talk about. And then I'm going to talk about some of the more unusual things I found over there. So if you're going out to Norway, the first thing you should consider is if you drink alcohol, definitely take some alcohol with you, whether that be duty-free or whether you've packed some in your luggage, you know, your hold luggage that you're able to take out with you, because you're going to be horrified when you get to Norway to find out how much drink costs. You know, a bottle of whiskey, of standard whiskey, can cost like £120, whereas over here you would find it in the supermarket for about £25. So a huge tax on alcohol over there. The same goes for cigarettes, tobacco products. You know, if you are a smoker or you want any sort of tobacco product, then that's going to cost you an absolute fortune. The first time I went there, I didn't know any of this. I went there to meet an agent and I asked him on the way, I was smoking at the time, I was smoking roll-up cigarettes, and I asked him to stop at a gas station on the way because I'd forgotten my tobacco, and he kind of raised an eyebrow. I didn't think much of it, went and bought some tobacco in the gas station, and I didn't know what the conversion rates were. I just paid it on my card. Got back in the car and he said, wow, you must be rich. You could have bought your own tobacco with you and you just bought it over here. You must be earning a lot of money. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, you want to check your bank to see what the conversion rate is and see how much that just cost you. And so a pouch of tobacco over here at the time, I think was about £8, £9, something like that. This was quite a long time ago. And it was £36 in Norway. And like I say, that was a while back. I hate to think how much that stuff costs now, but it was outrageously expensive. If you go out for a meal in a restaurant, the same thing. You know, food is not outrageous, but still quite expensive. But definitely if you're having drinks with your meal, then keep an eye on how much you're being charged. And they're not scamming you. It's the same across the whole of Norway. You know, things are just very expensive there. You've got to bear in mind that Norway has really good mineral wealth. You know, it's got a lot of oil and stuff like that. So there are families there that are vastly rich, and it's not massively populated. And that's one of the things that makes it so beautiful, that you've got vast areas of untouched, you know, land, beautiful, rugged sort of mountainous regions, really, really pretty. And there's hardly any population on that at all. And the people that are there generally have quite a nice share of the wealth available. So they have a very high, you know, standard of living. They have a nice life out there. So they don't get too upset about some of the higher prices for things like food. Interestingly enough, the Norwegians will actually go to neighbouring countries. So if you go down the border between Norway and Sweden, there are these huge supermarkets. And the supermarkets will be like, it's just alcohol in one, and it's massive. It's like the size of a Tesco's, and all it has is alcohol. I've got a video of one here, and I walked into it. It was literally only sweets, because Norway has a massive tax on sugar, a bit like we do in the UK, but even more extreme. So they will actually go across the border, go and buy some meat, for example, which is heavily priced. They will go and buy their chocolate and sweeties in another supermarket. They will go to a booze outlet and buy another load. Then they will take that all back over the border to Norway, keep them going for the next month or so. And the same with tobacco products. You know, they will do that as well. They're well aware of the things costing a lot less in other countries, and they will mitigate that by travelling across the border to do so. You will probably find in Norway that you're offered a tobacco product you haven't come across before if you're from the UK or parts of Europe, because it's actually banned in most of Europe and the UK, and that is snus. So we probably all seen nicotine pouches, which are the little white pouches. I've probably got some knocking around. nicotine pouches are the little white pouches that you guys have probably seen people using, and they are basically some flavoured nicotine powder in those, and you can just put them inside of your lip and you would have them, you know, after a meal or something, and it just satiates you. You don't need nicotine, so it's kind of a way over here of giving up smoking, although people are starting to use them who never smoked before. But those are actually based on snus, like this one. This is one I got from Norway, and if we open that up, you can see they are a sort of foul looking brown colour, but that is very popular in Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden for example, and you will generally find people going over the border to buy this stuff. If you want to look like the guy in Predator with the big machine gun, then I strongly suggest you get the original one, and then you can kind of spit some out into the corner. They're not actually that bad. They're not as bad as chewing tobacco. You don't actually have to spit or anything with these. These are a wintergreen flavour. They're kind of nice. I take them with me. You know, if I'm going to a Scandinavian place, I generally take them because it's considered pretty polite after a meal that a lot of the guys will offer them round and kind of pop one under their lip, and that's kind of a standard cultural thing, certainly in the industry that I'm in, and just very popular in general. Of course, the weather can be quite cold and the climate can be pretty inhospitable at certain times of year, so if you're going to Norway to go hiking and stuff like that, be careful. You know, it's the sort of place where you could easily get lost and be miles away from help or anywhere, and it's going to be freezing cold, and you're not going to have shops that are a quarter of a mile away like you would in the UK or some other European countries. You could easily get into some serious problems if you just wander off in Norway and don't know where you're going, or you're not well equipped. The first night I was over there, on the first trip that I ever did, I kind of experienced something that I'd never seen before. So I was at a hotel that was actually miles away from anywhere. It was owned by a defence company. We were out there doing a military demo, and this hotel was in a beautiful area, you know, just sort of rolling hills and beautiful empty countryside. And then about 12 o'clock at night, I hear like a sub-bass speaker pumping away. I'm thinking, what on earth is that? You know, we're in the middle of nowhere, and I think maybe the hotel's got some sort of party on. So I wander downstairs, seeing what's going on. Nothing, everything's quiet. Go back up to my room, look out the window, and I can see this huge bus a couple of 100 meters away from the hotel in a car park, and there's like disco lights coming from it, people freaking out, dancing, obviously having a good time. So I thought, well, that's pretty unusual. And it was like a coach, a very, very well equipped coach, you know, very expensive looking. So I come down in the morning and I say to the Norwegian guys I meet, and I say, guys, you know, someone having like a rave in the car park last night, what the hell was going on there? And they said, oh, that's standard, it's the time of year, and it's called Rus. And at this time of year, it's when the high school students have basically finished their exams, and it's the period where they're about to break up and they're going to go off to university or whatever. Over there, the end of high school, they've generally all turned 18, and they have this thing called Rus, which is where all the students have a month or so of celebratory period, but it is way like enhanced and even more bizarre than anything I've ever heard of. Because of the huge wealth in that country, the families of these students can afford to put quite a lot of money into this celebratory time. So the students all get together and they either buy or hire these massive coaches. So this is at the higher end. I mean, you do get people just doing it in camper vans and stuff, but a lot of the kids will all get together, hire or buy this huge modern coach. They'll fit it out with like a really big sound system, like a 40k sound system in there. They'll even hire sometimes a DJ to travel around in the bus with them, and that will be for a month. They hire a driver to drive the bus. Then they basically just go around Norway, meeting other buses, you know, stopping in various places in car parks and stuff, generally getting absolutely hammered. But they've also got some bizarre rituals they do. So they all dress in coloured jumpsuits and coloured hats. And there's like different sects of these students that wear different colours and whatever. I'm not entirely sure on how that works out. But then they have these kind of challenges that they do. And if they complete these challenges, they get these kind of little badges and little things that they can wear. And that denotes which challenges they've done. The challenges range from pretty average stuff to the outright bizarre and sometimes, you know, even inappropriate. So it could range from something like sneaking into your teacher's back garden, for example. But then it would get even more bizarre, of like sneaking into your teacher's house and cooking the teacher breakfast without the teacher knowing. So that's quite unusual. Then it would range from things like drinking huge amounts of alcohol, you know, like if you can drink X bottles of alcohol in X amount of time, then you would get this badge or this little trinket to wear.
Yeah.
All the way up to like public sex acts and even things like performing a sex act on a policeman was one of them. And I was actually with some policemen at the time and they were all kind of sniggering about that. But quite bizarre to hear that such things existed. And it's getting quite a bit of stick now because it's a cultural thing. You know, it's been going on for many, many years and it's been widely accepted. They actually tried to cut back on it a bit in Norway by changing some of the exam times around, but they found that it didn't prevent the partying at all. And all that happened was the students got slightly worse grades because they carried on partying throughout anyway. So they actually petitioned to get those times changed back. And there's been a lot of controversy with the public, you know, complaining about noise, complaining about drunken students. And of course, now we're into a more left-wing kind of concerned era. There's a lot of concerns around the sexualized side of things, whether or not there's any kind of unpleasantness going on where there may be boys putting unnecessary pressure on girls. There's been some suggestions, for example, that girls were allowed places on these buses if they were willing to perform certain sex acts and what have you. I don't know of the truth in that. I just know that that has been a controversial point of discussion in the country. It may well be greatly exaggerated by the media, but that is what the public are discussing nonetheless. While I was in Norway, I almost got bitten by a snake. That was not something I expected to happen in Norway. I've been to many places where I did expect to see snakes. I actually was walking backwards trying to take a picture of a military vehicle and we were just on the edge of some woodland and I saw out the corner of my eye something just moving, didn't think much of it, and as I got closer to it, this thing moved really quickly at that point and it was actually a snake. I was able to take a picture of this snake and showed one of my friends, my Norwegian friends, and he said, oh, that's the only poisonous snake we have in Norway, and they're very rare. So I wouldn't worry too much. Hopefully that won't happen to you, but I kind of jumped out my skin because I absolutely hate snakes. So yeah, I didn't know that snakes would like that kind of cold climate, but apparently they do. They also have wolves in Norway. They were kind of reintroduced, you know, that's been a discussion point even in the UK of people in the wildlife world talking about the reintroduction of predators like that to help balance ecosystems. That's been a good and a bad thing in Norway. You know, on the good side, yes, you could make an argument that it has balanced some of the ecosystem. On the downside, a lot of the locals have been adversely affected. There's been people's dogs taken, there's been a lot of livestock taken, and it's completely illegal to hunt these wolves. So their populations are expanding, they're causing more problems, and no one can really do anything about it. So a lot of the locals are upset by that, and now they're becoming concerned about in certain areas even their children going out on their own, etc. One of the interesting meals I ate in Norway was reindeer meat. I'm sorry for those of you that love Rudolph and his merry band of reindeer. That was the first time I'd eaten reindeer meat, and I have to say it was fantastic. I just finished being vegetarian at the time. I did a stint of vegetarianism just to see how it was, and I did a stint of veganism as well. Then went for a meal in Norway and was offered some reindeer meat, and I took some. You know, I couldn't turn it down because I was very curious, and it was actually beautiful. That's a sort of delicacy dish over there, so I would thoroughly recommend if you get the opportunity to try that. It is not cheap, but it is very, very nice indeed. A lot of the places in the more rural areas of Norway, you will find that they actually, you know, shoot and process their own meat, which I'm very pro. That was one of the reasons I ate this reindeer meat, because it hadn't gone through an abattoir process and all the horrid things that happen when huge companies process animal carcasses. It had been shot, you know, as ethically as possible by someone, processed locally, and then dealt with on the spot and served up to us in quite quick fashion. Probably one of the reasons it tasted so good. But, you know, I'm very much pro, if you're going to eat animal products, at least have the balls to actually bring it to the table yourself, and don't rely on a supermarket chain to do it in probably a very unethical manner. Hunting's a big deal in Norway, so if you are a hunter and you're looking to go somewhere that's beautiful and has lots and lots of countryside available and lots of animals that you can go and hunt, then Norway would definitely be an interesting destination for you. Same goes with fishing. I like pike fishing. I do a lot of that in the UK in the rivers, and Norway is massive for pike fishing. You know, they've got some really big specimens over there. So if you're someone who wants to do that, that's definitely worth a look as well. You could probably save yourself a bit of money on that sort of trip, because if you're camping and you can kind of take a load of stuff with you, maybe travel over by vehicle across Europe and into Norway, and then take a lot of your own food and drink, you're going to save yourself a hell of a lot of money, because that is the bulk of the trip. To get there and back, you know, the flights, etc., or the petrol isn't going to be awful. The real expense in Norway is the hotel accommodation, the drinks and the food. The people of Norway were fantastic. You know, I had a great time. They've got a really good sense of humour. I had a lot of fun with them. The guys that I was out with were a great laugh, and all the people I met over there were really cool. They were all very curious, you know, they had a lot of questions about the UK, and they were very, very pleased to tell you about all the stuff that was going on in Norway as well. So it's a fascinating place if you enjoy human interaction. Most of them speak fantastic English. So again, I was saved. I feel shamed every time I go to a foreign country, because I'm a typical English person. I talk a very small amount of everyone else's language, but I'm not particularly fluent in any of them. I can probably just about get by in French and a bit of Spanish, and the rest of them I kind of know how to say hello and how to say can I have X at the bar in a kind of broken sentence. But they had superb English, and they were quite happy to utilise it, unlike the French. You know, if you go to France, most of them can speak great English and don't want to and refuse to. In Norway, they were quite happy to speak English with me, and they didn't kind of give me any judgy looks or anything like that. Transport in Norway, again, is not something that's going to be dead cheap. You know, if you get a taxi or something, it's not particularly cheap, and a lot of things are quite a distance apart, just because of, as I said, the way the country is laid out, the sparsity of population. You're going to have to probably do some serious mileage if you want to visit various destinations in Norway. That's why I would suggest taking your own vehicle and maybe turning it into a bit of a camping trip if that's your thing. Crime wise, it's very safe, you know, other than these students all kicking off and getting kind of drunk, and that's one of the reasons why the local population complain about stuff like that, because they haven't really got a huge amount of crime over there, so there's not much else for them to complain about apart from those pesky kids. And it's a very safe place to be. You know, not once over there did I feel concerned. And if you look at the sort of local crime rates and the stuff on the news, you know, there really isn't much going on at all. It's not particularly ethnically diverse. And again, that's probably down to the, you know, the weather conditions, the sparsity of the population. If you go to the big cities, they're a little more diverse. But if you're in a country that's got a low population count, it's not got a huge amount of jobs on offer. You know, they're not desperate to employ people, and they haven't got tons and tons of housing being built. So it's probably not that attractive for people that are from other regions of the world looking to migrate and go somewhere. They're probably not thinking Norway as kind of their first stop. They're probably thinking France, UK, Germany, Spain, you know, the common places where we're seeing migration move to. Would I recommend people travel to Norway? Yes, absolutely. I can't begin to explain how beautiful it is. You know, if you haven't been there before, 100% go there, experience it. The beautiful countryside, you know, it's very rugged. It's like something out of a film. You know, you feel it's almost surreal in some of the places because you can literally be the only person there having this beautiful view out across hills, and it's just amazing. The forest, the lakes, everything is fantastic. And especially if you're, you know, used to being in a city and you go there, it will blow your mind. So 100% go there. If you're the sort of person who likes countryside and likes that kind of thing, you will have a great time. If you're someone who really enjoys going to cities and spending lots of money in restaurants and getting absolutely smashed on alcohol, probably don't go to Norway. There are many, many other destinations that will have you covered for that. You're going to miss out on all the beautiful scenic stuff, and you're just going to end up paying a fortune to get wrecked. So yeah, don't go to Norway if you're one of those guys. I hope that was useful and you enjoyed it. I'll continue with these travel logs all the time that you guys watch them. Take care. I'll catch you later.